Hi, I'm Mario Guerra, the two-time former mayor of the great city of Downey, and you're listening to Talking California with Mayor Mario. I'm here today with Zurich Lewis. He's been the chairman of the 64th Central District. And also he's an elected official from the Cerritos College Cerritos College Board of Trustees. And from my perspective on there, I am the Budget Committee Chairman for the California Republican Party and former elected state treasurer for them. Zurich, we've been having an interesting conversation. This is a little bit over a week since the election and the national election and the California election. What is some of your thoughts?
There needs to be a reform on how slow we count our ballots here in California because it's just awful. And it's always a balancing act as to how much access you want to give and how much transparency and clarity you need to give as soon as possible. It's obviously better that we can give more, but at the same time we cannot have elections drag out for this long. When so many races are on a very thin margin.
Well, right now back in Washington, they're doing the training for the new Congress people coming in and so forth. And here, the ones that we have here, some can't go yet because it hasn't been declared one way or the other, and they're too close.
And there have been wrong candidates that have gone to those trainings a number of times at the state and national levels in the last few years between Young Kim and Christy Holstedge.
Absolutely. So, so the national. So let's talk about, and we won't talk too long. Everybody talking head is discussing on that.
Right. No, that's,
Were you surprised on President Trump being elected?
I wouldn't say surprised. I wouldn't go so far as to say that I was surprised because, there was such a narrative that was completely fake that had been building. And, I'm not the biggest fan of Trump. He wasn't certainly my first choice. I've always been a Nikki Haley fan ever since she even got elected governor in 2010. So I've always been a big fan of who she is and what she stood for. But, what had happened, at the national level was just been a creation of machinations of a persona, and in every interview that Kamala was in, there was just a lack of substance, never having gone to any kind of policy whatsoever. And even asked by Sonny Hostin on The View, what would you change about the Biden administration? Even James Carville said that was the worst thing you could have ever said. And so the reason why Biden was kicked out, along many reasons, went with Kamala as well, because she was part of the Biden-Harris administration. So a lot of people wanted a change, and it's not just about cheaper eggs. It's not just about having better gas prices or grocery or this or that. There's a fundamental battle for the soul of America, and it's just pretty clear that the Democratic Party, even up until now, has just been very much out of touch with regular people.
I think they misread the tea leaves. I really do. Because I think the only two people that former President Trump could have ever beaten was both Hillary Clinton and Kamala Harris. Now, they both happen to be women, so people are saying, everybody's anti-women. That's not true. Again, like you said, Nikki Haley, I was a Nikki Haley delegate. And, for me, I worked for Senator Marco Rubio, which is a great pick for Secretary of State. You can't pick a more qualified person. So, I think that they kept thinking that this was going to be on the women's rights issue, which I think did turn off half the country if you did. I mean, President Trump did better with, both African Americans, from Latino men, they're from the youth that were basically saying, hey, economy, border, crime, or crime, economy, border, or border, economy,
it's the economy,
crime.
Stupid.
It is, and so forth. So, and here in California, we saw this in the disingenuous ads that they were running, especially about against certain candidates, congressional candidates. Oh, that person, is pro-life and doesn't believe in, the women's right to choose and this and that. But the disingenuous part is because, he's going to bring, stop abortions here in California. And everybody that made the commercials, everybody involved in the commercials, every candidate knows that there's almost a zero possibility California has abortion in its constitution. We voted on that. The state did
Right.
a couple of years ago. So for there to be a national ban, which, by the way, nobody has said they ever want, including President Trump.
Including President Trump.
You know,
That's right.
he's glad that the Supreme Court kicked it back down to the state. That's his pride achievement, if you will. But they're blaming him for stopping abortion. No, it's up to the state. So when they kind of use that as a crux, and that's the number one reason you should elect so-and-so congressman here in California, everybody can see through this. Like, okay, you're just trying to pull one over our eyes.
Yeah. No, and unfortunately, a lot of what's in politics is about perception rather than reality.
Yeah.
So, you know, I mean, going back to bring it back to the states, even Ruth Bader Ginsburg said that the Roe decision was wrongly decided, and everything, you know, since then that was based off it. And so, you know, would she have voted for Dobbs? I don't know. We'll never know.
Yeah.
But, you know, it was something that is a federal issue as a matter of bringing it back to the states.
Yeah.
So, you know, to have a campaign that's based almost solely on the abortion issue. I mean, it's important. It's an important issue to a lot of people, and it certainly is. But
I'll tell you, it turned off. Turned off men. And that's saying that's not my issue.
It did.
And not that they're anti-women or anti-anything. It's like, you're not speaking to me. So that's the one thing that's come out. You know, here in California, she got less votes than Biden did. I mean, President-elect Trump got more votes in California, since a lot more Republicans and more votes as a Republican than anybody since 2004.
Absolutely,
You
yeah.
know?
No, and that's especially pronounced in the Latino communities, where, you know, George Bush in 2004 got 45%, and I believe we'll find out once it's all certified, but it's going to be a similar margin here. And so, and ever since 2016, like the Sela cities of Bell Gardens and Cudahy have swung 50 points, 50 points to the right since Hillary Clinton was there, where Donald Trump was getting 8 and 9% of the vote at the time. He's getting around 32% of the vote in there, and where, you know, Hillary got 85, Kamala got 60% of the vote. So it's a massive swing, and even here in the city of Downey, you know, it was about 66, almost 70% for Hillary at the time, and now it's closer to 58% of the vote. So,
and we're predominantly Hispanic here.
Of course.
But, you know, the one thing, so the LA Times interviewed me on a couple of things, and that was one of them. So what do Latinos, this is right before the election, so what do Hispanics, what do Latinos want? You know, like, they want the same thing everybody else does.
That's right.
You know, we want to be able to get good education. We want to be able to have good jobs. We want our families to be safe. Not necessarily in that order, you change the order, but that's what everybody wants. We want to live a good life and have our families safe.
Exactly. I mean, you look at, you know, Miami-Dade County that voted for a Republican for the first time since ever, for a long time, certainly, maybe even Reagan. But even more pronounced is the Starr County, which is in South Texas. They voted for Donald Trump, the majority of the vote, as currently right now, for the first time since 1892.
Wow.
Since 1892. That they had been voting Democrat ever since. And
I think
it's
the
because
country
they're on
just
the border. They're on the border.
They're feeling it.
They're absolutely feeling it. You got Zapata County. You got, you know, all these other counties over there that you know, have migrant families that came, of course, the right way. And, you know, they're seeing, hey, you know, there's rampant crime. You just let anybody and everyone have, you know, coming over, and that needs to stop. And I'm really looking forward to, you know, having it the right way, because, you know, we've had plenty of immigrants, including, you know, you, right?
I'm a refugee.
My grandparents were, you know, we came the right way. We, you know, created and had the American dream here. And so we need to keep that, because, you know, it only takes one generation for that to fall.
You know, you feel, I mean, you understand when you saw the buses from Governor Abbott in Texas going to certain states and stuff. But you know what? There's something to be said. Again, I feel terrible for the poor people and everything. But like the first bus we got in California, everybody's, oh, this is terrible. But everybody on that bus was happy because they had family here in California that we helped them get the bus here, you know, Texas did, and so forth. But the one thing about it is that some of these cities then realize the pain that's involved in all the border towns and saying, wow, this is what you've been going through for the last 8 years? This is crazy out there. And I think that did change. I think some of the swing states that are, the battleground states, I think in some of those cities saw some of that. I'm not saying it's right. I'm not saying bust and deport people and all the other stuff. I'm just saying that I think the pain was shared a little bit.
Yeah, from an observational standpoint, because there's so many immigrants that have come to different communities, and we just kind of do a catch and release, and bringing them into different communities where we hope that they can integrate, and we'd love to have them here, but it has to be at a sustainable path, and it has to be at a sustainable route where we can bring in those give me your tired, give me your poor people, because that has been the American dream for many years, but to have it continue without any kind of regulation whatsoever, without any kind of investigation onto who is coming over the border, we'll never know.
Absolutely.
And we should know.
And we should, absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's go to some of the statewide things. I think the last election obviously was 2020, and that was a COVID year. We had just gone through the George Floyd riots in the summer, the whole country. And I think there was a big natural shift to the left. Okay, yes. George Gascon gets elected. And then the very first day that he's sworn in, says, this is all these crazy things I'm going to do. Yeah. And everybody's like, what? What do you mean you're going to do that? And he was right. He said that during the campaign. Nobody was paying attention. And then he did what he was going to do. So now Angelenos from Los Angeles County said, we don't want that, and overwhelmingly booted him out. I mean, those are big numbers.
Yeah, no, there have been so many cities over the last 2 years or more that have voted no confidence in George Gascon because of different police departments that
Downey being one of them.
Exactly, Downey, La Mirada being one of them. Coming in and saying, hey, look, our police department has been doing, just like we were talking about immigration, catch and release, right? And you end up arresting the same guy over and over and over and over again, and there has been no charges filed within the DA. So, prosecution and, the criminal justice system, needs hand-in-hand partners to create safe cities. And if you have any cog of that machine missing, then it's going to cause
especially the prosecutor.
Yeah, it's going to cause great despair for everybody.
So we Californians says, okay, enough is enough. Even against the governor, even against the legislature, we passed overwhelmingly Prop 36.
That's right.
Says there's got to be some consequences. There's got to be some penalty. I'm sorry, I read it. I did the detailed analysis. I'm a human being. I'm a Catholic clergy. I believe in second chances. I believe in first, second, and third chances. But it was crazy what was going on. I voted for Prop 36 along with 70 other percent of their state.
It's very clear. Every single county, even San Francisco, even Marin, even Contra
San Francisco booted out they recalled their DA last year, and then they booted out their liberal mayor, which she was trying to get to the center, but she started off so far left, they booted her out.
Yeah, and now you have a moderate guy in there as well, and that's a lot of moderates are now in charge of San Francisco, and hopefully you don't see the ruins of what were great malls once upon a time.
Yeah, which I was on there. My wife and I were talking the other day too. We used to love to go to San Francisco. We literally said last month, we don't have any reason to ever go back to San Francisco. I have no desire. Too many other places in California and the country to go visit on there. So, but I think we're seeing a fundamental. Well, okay. So here's some of the other things. Rent control. Okay, that AIDS Foundation put it on there 4 times in a row. Rent control doesn't work. Okay. Residents were smart enough to see that's actually going to hurt affordable housing. They said no. Okay. Then you had the revenge factor, the one, is it 34, I think, the one that says you have to spend your money on if you're getting government funding for medical, you need to spend 98% of it on the people, because that's what the AIDS Foundation on there was using that money to promote rent control and all the other things on there. So people saw through that on there. So I think, folks, politically, we always know there's the far left, the far right. Okay, most of the country is somewhere here. Here's the middle. They're just left center or right center on there. I consider myself a moderate. Here's center. I consider myself right center on many issues.
Absolutely, same
and here. I think that's where most of us want to govern and want to do things. I think the state is starting to get there. I think the left center is going towards center, and even the goofy right is going over here. And I think we're
There's
getting
been a
there.
lot of realigning towards the center because, what a lot of people have been told is that if you don't step 100% with the doctrinaire of the
Yeah.
academia, the Democratic Party,
Yeah.
the most far left of any kind of institution,
Yeah.
then we are going to ostracize you.
Right.
And too many people got ostracized from
Right.
there. And it's a revolution of those people who have said, you know what, I don't appreciate the new values of, you can call it woke, you can call it whatever,
Right.
but, it's not what has been fundamentally a part of this country and how we
Right.
have created the best
Right.
country in the world
Right.
to, have, where we're at today to be the United States of America, because it's always, it's lost on some people that we are the United States of America. This is not the federal one homogenous
Yeah.
place.
Yeah.
Every part of our country is different between Arkansas, Florida, Maine,
Right.
California, Alaska, Hawaii. There's all very different cultures, and that's why we have the federal system that we have, is so that each individual state can have that much more closeness to
Right.
the people that it governs, and as close as you can get the power to the residents, the better government,
Right.
9 times out of
Right.
10 that you're
Well,
going
you
to
saw,
get.
but look how the state is changing. You've seen those maps on social media throughout.
Yeah.
How the color has changed from all the counties. How many counties now have changed colors, if you will?
Yes.
On there, and then the whole country. I mean, you basically have the liberal left side. You got Washington State, Oregon, and then the border of California. The ocean border.
Right.
And then you got New York and the New England states. But the majority of the country, once in a while, you get a red dot here or there, have changed colors.
Yeah,
It's
and,
crazy.
Unfortunately, land doesn't vote, right? A lot
Right.
of those counties don't
Right.
have very many people,
Right.
more cows and chickens
Yeah.
than people.
Yeah.
But where you see the fundamental shifts are in the margins of those blue
Yeah.
cities
Yeah.
and blue counties,
Right.
right? LA County, San Francisco, New York. How much fundamentally right that they have moved even in
Right.
just 4 years,
Right.
especially in the Bronx and even some very
Well,
Asian
LA
areas
County,
too.
like we said, that's
So,
one of the
yeah.
lowest voter turnout voting for a Democrat that's happened in a long time. And here, this is the home state of Kamala Harris on there, and
Right.
she did worse than Biden and several other Democrats before. I mean,
and now
that
she
says
might be
something.
trying to follow the Nixon route and run for governor
Run
and try
for
to clear
governor,
the field.
and then come back the other way around. Yeah, absolutely.
Right.
So, so what do you think of? I've met President Trump like 5 times.
Sure.
3 or 4 of them were small groups, like one of them was in the green room, and there was like 4 of us. And I want to tell you something: the persona you see out there, and I don't agree
Sure.
with everything he says, and he does. I don't know. I wish, and he seems calmer since he won. So maybe,
Yeah.
maybe that is on there. He hasn't, said big crazy things so far. So maybe that's
a
a
few
good
things.
thing. Well, a few, but
A few nominations are.
that's a different story. We'll
that's
get there in a
enough.
second.
Right,
We'll get
right,
there in a
right,
second. But
Yeah.
he's actually, like I said, in person out there, he's just really nice. I know, and you saw some of them yesterday. He was gracious with President Biden there in the Oval Office, and so like that. So he can be. So I'm hoping for that. But now let's go to nominations. Okay, he's got a couple great picks. Senator Rubio's
That's right.
a great pick. A Secretary of State. That's an amazing man. I work for him. I've known him for a long time. He's going to do a great job. We've known that for 10 years that he should have been Secretary of
Oh, yeah.
State under any administration. He's a policy hawk and knows the countries and stuff. The one yesterday that we have to, I mean, some of the other ones are pretty decent too. There's a couple real good ones on there, but Matt Gaetz as Attorney General, you're
Yeah.
like, oh, and
It's, I forgot it was Senator Mike Rounds, maybe some other senator that said, I'm going to have to noodle on that for a while. And I think that's a very...
Senator Lindsey Graham
yeah.
Graham too on there. I just think that I know he wants a loyalist. I know he wants smart people, and I think he's smart because he's very articulate. But one of the Republican senators said, he takes plates and he breaks them, and then he breaks up the broken pieces. and then he breaks those up again, so he's always breaking things.
Yeah.
And just the way he behaved toward Speaker McCarthy on there, he lost me and so many.
Yeah.
I don't know. I just think that's a very political position.
It is.
Wow.
But and it's he's the very definition of a demagogue, right?
Yeah.
Someone who's just appealing to the lowest common denominator of a lot of people. And we might agree just on policy this, policy that, whatever.
Yeah.
But part of being Attorney General is also knowing how to handle people to go after and implement the agenda that we need to have for accountability of so many institutions and so many people. So there's a lot of theories being thrown around as to he's being rewarded as a loyalist so that he can have the report that was originally going to come out at this time, but he can still take his seat in January 3rd because he only resigned from this term. And there's a lot of complicated, he did this, here's this theory machinations, but more often than not, Occam's razor, the simplest explanation is the best explanation. And so if Donald Trump wants to nominate Matt Gaetz, have recess appointments and just kind of push that through, because that's what he was asking Senator Thune, who by the way is a Biola graduate too,
that's
class
right.
of '83.
That's right.
So I was super thrilled about Senator Thune becoming majority leader. Very competent, very hands-on.
Right.
But
and Trump wanted Senator Rick Scott from Florida, which would have been a good choice, but more of a loyalist towards him.
Yeah. Well, I've never been the biggest fan of Rick because of his tenure in the NRSC for a lot of races that were quite frankly blown.
Yeah.
In 2022. So I much rather have someone like Thune on there. So
okay. So now let's go.
Yeah.
We have the House, we have the presidency, the White House,
Right.
and we have the Senate. 2 years. Okay. Don't blow it. What's the first couple things you do? Because Speaker Johnson said yesterday, he goes, hey, we're already working on this. We're going to get going. We know we got to run fast. Getting the appointments in early, that's a positive thing. But also the policy positions. What are your thoughts?
A lot of the power needs to be devolved back to the states. So there's an incredible amount of bureaucracy at the federal level, and some have said
Department of Education
is certainly one of them, but a lot of people are saying, well, what happens to the special needs kids and this and that. It's not like the funding goes away.
Right.
It's the funding that's brought back to the states, and there's ways to create a grant and say, hey, you need to actually use it on special needs kids. You need to use it on the things.
Yeah,
that
we're not
doing.
against
But
education.
We're taking red tape out
Yeah.
is what we're doing. We're not taking any funding out for the necessary things for our students. And the education is something that ultimately needs to be done at the closest level, just like pretty much anything else, right? You look at the 10th Amendment and the things that have been enumerated to the federal government need to stay with the federal government, and anything that has not been enumerated to it shall be given back to the states.
Right.
So having again a perfect union, a more perfect union, involves each of the laboratories of democracy coming in and deciding, hey, what worked here in Nebraska, it might work well in Minnesota, and then it might work well here, or maybe it doesn't. So everybody has their own will of determination of to what works in their respective communities, because our state is not the same as New Hampshire.
No, of course,
Yeah.
Nor should it be, and I completely understand that.
Yeah.
But we do need to run fast. I think that immigration reform is important. I don't think that's the number one choice. I think we need to secure the border. That's
yes,
different than
absolutely.
Immigration reform.
Right.
Immigration reform, I remember when Senator Rubio was the Gang of Eight, if you will. They had a great one 9 years ago or so that I thought was good on there. There's got to be a way, there's got to be something on the DACA. Because if you were brought over as a 2-year-old, you're now a 22-year-old college student, we can't send you anywhere. We shouldn't send you anywhere. You grew up here.
Right, exactly.
So DACA,
DACA
needs to be addressed. I think this whole deportation thing, to me, has gotten out of hand out there. The critics, especially people like on The View and Jimmy, Abuelita's going to get deported and this. And come on, they're doing the scare tactics again, because I think everybody has, the Trump administration saying, number one, there is, for a lack of a better way of putting it, low-hanging fruit, if you will. There's criminals here. We know who they are. Let's get the criminals out. Okay, not
Yeah.
just because you did a crime and coming over, but you actually did a crime when you're here. You hurt somebody. You're a felon and so forth. That's easy. Let's go get you. So when LA City says, "Oh, we're a sanctuary city. You can't go," and they're giving Jim McDonnell, our new police chief in LA, a hard time, it's like, wait a second. So if you have a felon that's hurt 3 people, one of them was a murder, and you have them in your jail, you're saying we can't come in, the federal government, can't come in and get them and deport them back to Venezuela, to Colombia, wherever? Why? What are you talking about?
And I think both sides are taking a massive hammer or a blunt object to issue that needs to be handled with surgical precision.
Yes, okay, that's a great way of putting it. Thank you.
I mean, you have people that are like, deport everybody, period, right? That's stupid, never going to happen.
It's never going to happen.
And then you have the other side that says, don't deport anybody. We need to, literally have open borders. And
But see, having a discussion is really important, because everybody likes to paint, the Republicans, you're mean, you have no heart, and so forth. And it's like, come on, man.
You always
common
find
sense. And I don't think all the Democrats are terrible people either. Some of them are my best friends,
Exactly,
So,
you always find, some random legislator in, Arizona and Nebraska always saying, the most right-wing thing, and say every single Republican, every single one believes in this. If you have an R after your name, you believe in this. And that's just not true, because we are a big tent party, and that's pretty clear from the election results in this most recent
my son's old girlfriend
election.
puts it on social media. If you voted for Trump, number one, she spelled out the F word, and you're a racist, you're a Marxist, you have Hitler tendencies, you just don't have a heart, and you're this and that. And I did. I waited a day, and my wife laughed, but I wrote to her, and it was very simple, and I put it out there. I go, I'm not a racist. Okay, I'm not a Marxist. I don't belong to the KKK. I love people. I love gays. I love people of all genders and creeds. I do pray for everybody, and so forth on there. Your rant on hate is hateful, and so forth, because it is. The Jimmy Kimmel thing, when I watched it again, I just started laughing. Yeah, you serious? I had somebody come into the office the last time when Trump won, and they come in the next day, all down. I go, what's the matter? Oh, Trump won. Our ecology is going to be terrible, and this and that, and save the world, and the whole thing. I go, are you kidding? I go to work, make some money. Just do your part. Yeah, do your part. It'll happen.
Trump or Harris or anybody at the national level is not going to fill your potholes. The city of Downey is. So it's that was so much more important to get involved in local elections and to get people in. And
we elected. Look at the 5 people. The city of Downey. We have 5 good people there. They're all good people. They're very different ideology on there, and you probably have 2 real conservatives, 1 moderate, can go either way, and we have 2 liberal Dems. Both of them are gay, and they're both really good people. Okay, I have no issues with them on there. So we elected 3 out of the 4, and then I helped lead a drive called Measure D to give ourselves a 1/4 sales tax increase so we can hire more police and fire. And we put it out there, because if not, the county's going to take it away, really. If we didn't pass this, the county thing coming in was going to take it anyway.
Because you guys have a charter, and you have your own police, and you have your own fire,
so
which
it was
is
going to
common.
It was going to be easy but it was getting that message out, because I'm not a tax guy, or you. I don't want to tax ourselves more, but this made sense. So I helped lead that drive. I was the treasurer of the committee. 67% of the Downey residents voted that. When the fire union put that on the ballot years ago, because they wanted to go county, to take away the rights from the citizens to vote on keeping police or fire, 82% of Downey residents says, not so fast. We love our Downey and our fire and police. So the voting works. The hard part is getting the message out. We now have some sleazy lawyer guy he used to be in La Mirada, Andrew Saraga. He moves to Anaheim, runs for council. He finally got to be mayor in La Mirada, and decides to, for 1 month.
1 month.
After he'd waited 9 years to be appointed mayor. So he does this. Then he goes there and he writes a letter. City of Downey has had 4 districts since our beginning, since our charter 60 years ago. And then 1 citywide one, okay? Because our old person back then, James Stamps, one of our founders in corporation, he wanted to be a citywide mayor, and the residents says, nah, not so fast. So we have 4, and then we have the 1 citywide. So everybody in Downey gets I live in District 2. I get that person, and I get the citywide one. That person in District 3 gets that. Everybody in the city has 2 representatives.
Yeah.
How great is that? And he finds a niche on the California Voters' Rights Act that says you can't have a citywide one. I think we need to fight it. I think our council,
that's very
our lawyer,
arguable, too.
So but I think they're saying. But at the meeting the other day, our city attorney says, "Oh, if you have no city has ever won in defending the district." But it's like, wait a second. But yes, when you have all districts. But only one district here, it's not under representation.
Yeah.
You know?
And even so, that Santa Monica case has been given negative treatment by some courts of appeal that has yet to even be resolved.
But
at
it's
the
been
Supreme Court
the
level.
problem is they spent $3 million.
Yeah,
They have
litigation costs money. As an attorney, I know that.
so they're
Yeah.
all waiting. So the problem
Yeah.
is our council didn't have the stomach, and they may go to 5 districts, which is terrible. I'm losing 50% of my representation because some ambulance chaser lawyer out in Anaheim wrote this letter, and it's just one of those form letters, kind of like the ADA. Hey, your thing is half an inch too long.
And give me money because
he
of
wants
my
$40,000
attorney.
for writing the
And
letter.
that was what many other attorneys a few years ago were doing to a lot of school districts and a lot of cities to move that. I mean, it certainly happened in Norwalk, La Mirada.
Yeah, but ours, we always felt comfortable because we've always had districts. And then we only had 1 at large of the 5. Anyway, don't get me going. I'm frustrated because I just lost 50% of my representation because of that sleaze lawyer guy. So anyways, well, listen, there's a lot of things. Let's do this. Let's do this again sometime. We can talk politics and have an idea.
After we get certification of our election, there's going to be a lot more down in the details.
Yeah.
I'd be happy to create like a little infographic and go over the exact numbers and what that really means.
Let's do that.
For everything here.
That sounds good. We'll do that. We'll do that in the next month on there. So, anyways, folks, I hope you enjoyed listening and talking Downey. Zurich Lewis is a dear friend and a very smart lawyer, and also a great representative of the people. And we like talking about talking California with you in all the election. The election is not over, although nationally it's almost there, and the big pieces are in place. But anyways, thank you for listening. Thank you for watching Talking Downey with Mayor Mario.